These last couple of years have been interesting, to say the least. These last couple of years have been filled with many trials, not just the normal trials of life, but also we've had these huge global trials. We went through a pandemic, and we were told that millions of people were going to die, and for the longest time, every time you watch the television, there's a ticker, right? How many cases, how many deaths, how many, just every day. That was our reality. And a lot of people suffered a great deal of anxiety because of that. Anxiety is not just on the rise, but through the roof. And as much as COVID was real and COVID was an issue, what a lot of people haven't been talking about is the anxiety-related deaths because of how we responded to COVID. A lot of people haven't been talking about, for example, the rise in suicide in general, but especially the rise in suicide among very young people. Very young people who are just terrified and anxious and have taken their own lives. The rise in drug abuse and drug overdoses. People are anxious. And now as we're, coming out of the huge scare of this pandemic, there's another war, but not just another war, but this is a war that is involving our arch rival, the Russians. There's fear about whether Europe is going to be embroiled in another world war and whether or not that's going to include us and whether or not people will unleash nuclear weapons if that does happen. And so again, there is this fear and anxiety. You may not know it, but in many ways, Ukraine is considered the Bible Belt of Europe. Many, many Christians there. And now they're under attack, huddling underground, hoping to survive another barrage of bombing. And so there's that anxiety for them. So the question that I want to answer today is, what do we do with fear and anxiety? What do we do with fear and anxiety? Because first of all, let me tell you what we don't do. What we don't do is live like those fake Christians who act like everything is always all right. If you can't say amen, you ought to say ouch, right? We do not want to live like that. Having the worst day of your life, you get up, you have to wipe tears away from your eyes and fix your face, and you go outside and you run into somebody and they say, "How you doing?" And you smile and say, "Blessed and highly favored." Liar. But what do we do? How do we respond? Well, I think we have an answer to that in Exodus chapter 2. Look, beginning with me. In verse 23. Moses is here. Moses is born. Moses has been protected. Moses has grown up. We know Moses is the deliverer, but now Moses is going off the scene. And in verse 23 we read, during those many days, the king of Egypt died, and the people of Israel groaned because of their slavery and cried out for help. Their cry for rescue from slavery came up to God. And God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. God saw the people of Israel, and God knew. Now, as we look at this, I want to remind you, we're a long way away from the Red Sea. Their deliverance doesn't come tomorrow. And even when we get to the Red Sea, we're a long way away from Canaan. Amen? And even when we get to Canaan, we're a long way away from David and the golden age of the Davidic kingdom, right? And even when we get to David, we're a long way away from the greater David, Jesus. And even when we get to Jesus, we're a long way away from the consummation of all things at the end of the age. So keep that in mind. Because what I'm not talking about here is dealing with our fear and our anxiety by believing that tomorrow it's going to be gone. I'm talking about dealing with it in spite of the fact that tomorrow, unless you go be with the Lord, it won't be gone. It'll still be here. After this crisis, there will be another one.